Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Deal Flow Live. This is the show where we go over businesses that are listed for sale online. We give our opinion on whether or not these are businesses that we think are worth buying. And if so, we tell you why. We break down the financials, we break down all the details, whether it's priced fairly and that sort of thing. And we got something pretty interesting to go over today. This is an industry that we haven't covered before, but it's one that kind of caught Ryan and I's eye, and something that genuinely might be something we look into actually acquiring. What caught your eye about this one, Ryan? Well, first, break down what kind of business this is. I'll zoom in here a little bit. Break down what kind of business we're looking at here, and why this kind of caught our eye a second ago.
Well, I think the first thing that stood out for us was the price to sales ratio. That's pretty impressive. You're asking asking a mil for a $3 million sales business. So obviously, one of the things that we love about construction and trades is that usually it's a fairly high quotient. You're going to get a lot of high ticket sales, and they're probably not going to be asking as much for. So we know it was a good, it's a good ask really. And then we looked at the discernible earnings, and that's around a 20-ish, 21% return on that sales to or that price to sales ratio, which we like to see because we're also accounting for loans and all the other things that we talk about doing with this stuff. So thinking, okay, after everything is paid, that leaves us with some good take home. Now, SDE in discernible earnings is not necessarily your paycheck, but it's a good way to gauge kind of what it's going to be around. So we liked that healthy bit of ratio with some good, as we say, meat on the bone. Obviously, construction utilities, we love those because they're good. I'll call them AI resistant because I wouldn't want a robot touching my stuff. It's a good professional career, and there's always going to be a need for people to help run them. But most importantly, I liked utilities because utilities are government. And what does the government want to do? They want to get that taken care of, and they don't want to worry about it. And what does government like? Contracts, preferably years of contracts. So to me, that signaled, okay, this is a stable, likely long-term contractual business that has a lot of utility. And you tell me underground utilities, I'm already like, okay, that's something that's super niche.
It is. It's niche, and the other thing that I think of immediately, this is something that, is going to require a lot of equipment to operate.
Mm-hmm.
That means that you can't there's a high moat to being able to get into this business. If you wanted to start this business, it wouldn't be that easy. You'd have to know what kind of equipment to buy. You'd have to have the money to buy that equipment. So when you look at acquiring a business, one that is not just easy to enter and start yourself with some money, is something that makes more sense usually to purchase because there's a real reason for it. There's work that's gone into it, and probably a good bit of inventory, or rather not inventory, but FF&E. When we look at the FF&E on this business, it looks like there's about 140 grand of equipment.
And I liked that because in my mind, I thought that's really low for what they're talking. Missile boring, I don't even know what that is yet, but I'm going to look it up tonight and probably fall down a rabbit hole. But they're talking about all types of really kind of cool things about excavating, boring, drilling, all sorts of cool stuff and very important stuff for, just the collective, landscape of a government and a city and anywhere really, and suburbs, as we tend to see popping up in Florida a lot. So it was kind of one of those things where I looked at it and I said, okay, this is an equipment heavy gig, clearly needs a very specific license, which they list. How are they selling it for this low? And as we see here, a few W-2 employees leveraging subcontractors. So they are basically the guy that goes out and gets the work and then has a network of people who they do know who are all specialty guys, and they basically pay them a portion of whatever that contract is. We kind of have different, their views on it depending on the size, but I think when it comes to this size and this scale and this type of work, I'm not as shy about subcontractors, because I think conceivably if you did have all of that in-house, you're probably doing tens of millions of dollars, and if you had to maintain all of that equipment, all those people, it would be a large headache. So clearly this is a network heavy business that I think the biggest thing about this to me is, number one, do we know a license holder? Number two, how is that transition going to go into the introduction of subcontractors? Because, a lot of relationships in construction.
I'm curious too whether you need a license holder on this business.
If you
It doesn't.
scroll down,
Okay, does it mention something
underground
about that?
utility contractor's license will be necessary.
Aha. Okay.
hmm I also like that they very specifically told us when the projections were through. I appreciate that.
October 2024.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good job, broker and accountant.
Sounds like maybe this has been listed for a while then, if they aren't even updated through the end of 2024.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the biggest thing that we can see on this is the fact that there is a barrier to entry with the license. That's a super specific license too. So perhaps the reason is that at this point in time, they don't have anyone who will license hold. And if you're going with SBA, which a lot of people are, you cannot have the owner be your license holder under SBA guidelines, the new revised ones. So that really takes a lot off the table. And maybe this owner's just looking to move anyways and doesn't want to do this. So that would be what I think would do, because I feel like pricing and kind of everything seems to line up.
I'm curious just to look into what this is. I kind of want us to do a Google search on this horizontal directional boring.
I mean, trenchless technology, you already had me.
Minimally invasive trenchless technology used to install underground pipelines and conduits for utilities like water, electricity, and telecommunications without major surface disruption. So
That
it
is
sounds
so
like
cool.
if you were running this business, you'd be working with a lot of developers. That would be my guess. Is like with builders, like mostly land developers would be my guess.
Government, I think
Government.
because I mean, you're also like, you're talking about people who want, you got to replace stuff, got to put new stuff in, pipes break, things happen. I mean, we've all seen it where a stretch of road is closed for like 3 months because a singular pipe has to be moved. I mean, trenchless technology, if somebody wants to update their infrastructure, you have this unique technology. One of my things would be as one of the W-2 employees, a salesperson, because that's probably something you go into you've been in bid meetings when you're trying to get a job. Bidding is the term that you have to do. You're bidding, you're probably pushing this trenchless technology and all the advantages of it. So I think there's a unique edge to this business in that respect, given how that might actually increase the speed at which you can do a job. So
yeah, I'd be curious to see like if that's the primary source of how they get their jobs, is going on bid sites and getting them there, and if they have a good solid process for that. I'd also be curious to see, if I could look at this business under a microscope and kind of figure out whether I would want to be invested in it. I'd be curious, what are the levers you could pull to grow this business too? Because if it's kind of coming through a lot of relationships and things like that, then I would wonder, okay, well, how do you pour gas on that? How do you increase the sales? If not, if they have a good structured process and someone's kind of constantly trolling the bid sites and knows how to do the bids, how to bid them properly, how to win them, and that sort of thing, then I would wonder, well, how many bids are there? Is there a limited amount of them, and are we really taking advantage of as many as we could be? Or could there be another person hired and taught how to do this, and could you just double up on how many things are being bid for?
does it list the amount of W-2 employees on there? Because I know I said a few, but a few is a very vague number. I'm not sure if they did.
I think it just says a few.
Okay.
So I would want to know how many employees as well, kind of what the overhead looks like. I mean, the overhead is pretty substantial here, but I'll tell you what I see, because I have a little bit of a different opinion on the subcontractors thing. My guess here would be, if you were to really look at things closely, if they're mostly leveraging subcontractors, I think that if you really believed in this business and growing this business, what I think you would try to do is you would try to bring in some of those subcontractors, especially if they're smaller.
Mm-hmm.
I think you would try to bring some of them in full time and just take that risk and figure out what levers to pull on the sales side to increase things, because you're probably losing a ton of your margin to subcontracting. You're probably losing a significant amount of it there.
Yeah, I think it would depend. I think very specifically on the type of jobs that you were getting. If you were able to offer somebody exclusivity, assuming that you have multiple people doing certain types, but I think that's certainly a play that you can make down the road if you had a good relationship and you found somebody was really like on top of it, because obviously you have to be more appealing than them being a free agent, which if they're getting, which is always the challenge, the give and take with subcontractors, but the good ones, normally have a lot of work going on. So you got to really, make it worth their while. But I did
the big things I think about, with payment terms. If you're let's say with this business, maybe they're getting the work directly and then they're subcontracting these businesses out. Subcontractor is often going to get paid last. So if you're a subcontractor, you're small, you don't necessarily know where your next job's coming from, and you're probably getting paid last. So your payment terms are rough. So things can be kind of difficult. That's why I think like the security of coming into a little bit more large organization where maybe some of the project management gets taken off your plate through an employee that manages all the projects, and some of the little things get taken off your plate. That can be an attractive proposition for the right subcontractor if they believe in what you're doing. And then the other thing is, like when I say the margin thing, you have to think anytime they're subcontracting people, they have to pay way more money to make sure that subcontractor has enough margin to stay in business. So if all of a sudden you're bringing that in house, and I would guess, like, probably based on how they've kind of described this, it sounds like all subcontracting, you might get back 10, 15, 20% of your margin there. That's significant on a business this size. You get back just 10% of your margin, you effectively almost double or right about double the cash flow of it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's an extra, like, you're hitting closer to $500,000. So
sure, it's a little bit of a risk to take, but what if that subcontractor is netting $100,000 a year, and all of a sudden you can bring them in for $100,000, secure that, maybe give them bonus potential on top of that, and then also get back 10% of your margins, then you net 200 on that 100 that you're paying them.
I mean, even if you brought them in, you gave them a bump on, you said they'll beat, but last year by X amount, and you'll make feed into it. Even if you just split it, you said, okay, I'll take that's 5% back, and that's 5% they take. I mean, you've made 5% back, and that's still, you're pushing 400,000 now. You did, or 400 something thousand. You didn't even have to do anything different.
Sure. So there you go.
You could even, do it that way, but there's a lot of potential. I do like the fact that they have a sister company that is shared with. I'm not entirely sure they don't say what the sister company does, but having some sort of sister company, I guess, I'm not sure the context. I would assume that there is some sort of overlap in either the jobs or industry or something. So I'd be interested to know how that plays into it, because again, if this is a company that works adjacent to another company, there might be a lot of relationships and stuff that you can kind of use to really grow your own knowledge of the space, but also possibly continue working with and build upon. It's a very weird way to phrase it, but it does feel like there's some potential to get a little bit of a leg up, I guess, with this other company.
Sure. I would agree with that, honestly. It just depends on what it is, but could be like a bolt-on acquisition later down the road or something. You want to look at one more?
Yeah, let's do it.
This is altogether, though. What grade would you give this deal?
I would give it as just on a financial perspective, I would give it a B+, all-rounder, a B-, simply because I think that is a difficult task to get a person licensed that specifically. It's not because it's a bad business. I just think that the license thing is really going to hurt it unless they've taken the steps to find somebody to kind of help smooth that process.
I would agree with that. I'd say a B, mostly because of the license thing. It sounds like a great business with a big moat. And it sounds like, it's fairly priced. You get almost $150,000 of assets. You knock that off the price, you're paying under a 3x multiple for something 350-ish in profit. So I think it's well priced and like a good, solid, defensible mode of a business, but that license thing is sticky. I don't know how you would overcome that, because it's a very specific license. It's not like HVAC where there's plenty of people out there qualifying for it. Here's the other one we wanted to look at. We wanted to look at this pressure cleaning business. Want to take a look at this?
Yeah, I think
this is
day and age, it's one of those low barrier to entry businesses that everybody seemed to have one a couple of years back, but
kind of the opposite of the underground utilities. This is something anyone could just kind of pick up and start. In fact, I follow a guy on Instagram that is 14 years old and I think he's like 50 days into building his pressure washing business. He's made $9,000 in profit. He shows like how much profit he makes every day.
Mhm.
Gets 14 years old. Doesn't drive. Rides his bike with his little like rig on the back and carries around all of his stuff. Adorable, incredible. But
Truly, yeah, this is
14 years old and started a pressure washing business. To our point, not a huge barrier to entry.
No.
But most pressure washing businesses are not pulling in just under $2 million a year.
Yeah, this is what happens. I think when you take it very seriously, you got some good business chops and sales chops on you.
I would agree with that. It's highly profitable. Says that they do residential and commercial pressure washing, paver sealing, roof soft washing, and driveway restoration. I would want to know how much residential versus commercial, because when I think commercial pressure washing, I think, the sides of buildings, roofs, and things like that. Some of that stuff is getting replaced by drones. So if it's like tall stuff on the sides of buildings, I'd be a little bit worried about that.
I don't think many of the buildings in Central Florida are gonna probably be that high. So
Fair.
maybe not a concern for us. When I think commercial, I think like the 3 or 4 story like business parks.
Sure.
And I'm just like, yeah, they're just gonna hire a company to come out and do it. They're not
Most likely
burn on drones.
The drones are getting popular though. I went to a fun story actually. I ended up randomly at a pressure washing conference one time here in town, and one of the inventors of the pressure washing drones was there. Guy was like 6'7", wearing a cowboy hat, clearly knew his stuff. But he told us about it a little bit, and those things are taking over.
Wow. That's wow. Okay.
Price has been reduced for a fast sale, presenting a great opportunity for serious buyers. I wonder what the deal is with that.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're doing $1 million and you're asking for $1 million and your sales are 400,000,
doing almost 2 million.
I guess I want to know, what was it reduced from? Because it was, he was like 1.5, I'm like, yeah, that's a lot for pressure washing. So
this is well priced though. It's just if the discretionary earnings are accurate, then it's priced for just under a decent bit under a 2x multiple.
That's about where I think this industry kind of sits.
That's a good point.
Because of, as we've learned from people who have worked in the industry, the hardest part is the people aspect, because you can basically it's a simple to learn, but hard to keep good people around. So you have to make sure your people are getting paid well enough that, it's worth their time. But also it's just one of those things where, you put a wrong chemical on somebody's driveway, you put something on somebody's house, you're dealing with insurance now, and it's a whole mess. But also just like, is this guy going to show up today? Depending. So the reliability of the team is something I'd be very interested in.
Yeah. And I think with a business like this, the big thing is you've got to,
nobody went to trade school for this. So there's really just walked in off the street. They could do it.
I think you got to have like a legitimate person in place continuously doing recruiting for a business like this. Like you gotta have people coming in and out the door constantly, and just expect that there's going to be a lot of turnover. I'd be curious what this business looks like, because if you can bring in the team and they can be trained quickly, there's plenty of opportunity. They're offering training to ensure a seamless transition. It's a good market here in Orlando as well. There's a lot of equipment, it looks like, too. 234 grand in equipment. So, I mean, you're essentially, let's say you discount that 50% to make it grounded in reality.
Yeah, this is one where I would really try to get the broker to answer as many questions as possible, and then have my list ready for the owner and really try to feel out the vibe of the owner, because in many cases, I think it's usually a stress sale. Because again, it's a no trade, no like formal licensing business. So like you said, if you don't have somebody constantly doing it, of the hiring and all that, it can burn out fast, and you can also burn out fast because you're probably, if he's good and he's re-upping contracts, he needs to make sure he has the people. And if the people who, I could see how the headache of this would cause it to be, reduced in price, because again, what's to stop a 14-year-old from going to your residential people and then being like, I like you more, I'm going to give you the contract because you're cheaper too.
Sure. Yeah, I would want to know about those contracts for sure. I think it did say something about, did it say something about contracts or any kind of recurring revenue? Did you see
No,
anything in there about that? Maybe I was thinking something else. Recurring contracts in place. So I would want to know about that a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's probably on the commercial
And we're
side.
still in the tentative sales numbers for 2024, so nothing's been updated.
Yeah, I'd want to know if it's holding up this year for sure, because we're closer to the end of 2025 than the beginning.
Yeah.
What grade would you give this one?
I'd probably give it C.
A C. Interesting.
Yeah.
Why? What makes you say that?
I think it's a business that has really no barrier to entry. Very specifically, you can go on Amazon, start it tomorrow. I think that given what we know about the hiring process and the horror stories that we've heard from this niche specifically, it sounds like a lot of headache. And I think the price to sales, the price to discernible earnings is it's too good to be true in my opinion on a pressure washing business. So I don't know. For me, I think my personal feeling on risk of power washing businesses is why I give it was why I have that lens of a C. I think for an average person though, it could be more of a B- because it is a fairly good price for earnings ratio. Sales seem to be strong. I would just say get your 2025s in, get that information, and really kind of understand how the business works and how they, specifically how staffing is run.
Yeah, I would give this one about a B. I think the price is solid, especially given the amount of FF&E. I would want to probably get a little bit more of an accurate representation of what the FF&E is, and maybe use that to discount the price a bit. I'd be curious. I mean, I think my answer could change drastically to even an A or even a D, depending on the answer of the seller on why they're selling. I would want to know, like, why is it priced for a fast sale? Is there something that they're running from, or is it just something personal that they want to get? They have to get this off their hands. Maybe, you never know, that maybe it's a divorce or something.
Yeah, but I find, I've never heard anybody give me almost nobody gives me the full answer out the gate. So it definitely will take more digging and more conversation to get that. I think the first way to suss it out is look at the financials and ask purely financial questions. And if they get hung up on anything, dig deeper. You should be a business, not that everybody's going to have all the answers, but if they just go, I don't know, you could be like, if you ask them to, hey, can you figure that out? And they go, okay. And then they don't, it's probably because they don't want you to know. They're hoping you forget.
It's a good point. Well, anything else to say about these two businesses?
My win of the day is going to go to the Boring Company. Yes, it's got a very almost ridiculously weird barrier to entry, but I think that with that comes the rewards of those types of things where you are super niche, but you're super important, similar to kind of HVAC and plumbing and everything that we like. And I think just because I've, heard some, I don't remember the term for it, but there's something about when you know too much about something, it's like you get jaded to it. I don't remember what the term or phrase was, but that's how I feel about pressure washing, having dove into it very deeply at one point. It's just not my comfort zone, and that's fine. Somebody else this could be a very good business for somebody else who really loves that. In this kind of like, I'll say entry level or no barrier kind of company, I lean much more towards cleaning companies as general. Like if you're going to say, hey, if you're going to buy a company that takes absolutely no training formally, what are you going into? I'm picking cleaning every day.
What makes you say that over pressure washing?
It's more personal. People want cleaning, whether they're a business, a company, or a individual. Cleaning is a very kind of emotional work too. And it's a very, it's tangible. There's a feeling with cleaning. Like, yeah, you can get your pressure washing done and it feels good to see that. But like when you're cleaning a hospital or you're cleaning a office building or you're cleaning somebody's house, if you just do that right, people are staying in there for hours at a time. Like it's going to be a bit more, I think, personal to that. And also it's just one of those things that nobody wants to do. Pressure washing, people don't want to do either. But they can go on Amazon, just do it. It'll take like 30 minutes. I think more people would rather pressure wash than clean. I think pressure washing is something where if somebody told me, hey, do you want to go and do a deep clean of the living room or want to go power wash outside, I think power washing is going to be way more fun. So I'm going to go do that myself. I think the fun quotient for power washing is, in my opinion, greater than cleaning my house or doing whatever. But that's just me. That's just my weird take on it.
It's fair. I think it also depends with this one how many commercial contracts they have. I would be very curious to know about that because it's clear that they have both. They'd tell us about that. I would want to know, like when they mentioned the recurring contracts, like how many are commercial and how long are those going to continue?
Yeah, I think that by the end of the day, it's a matter of what's your contracts at, what's your 2025 at. Because right now, guys, if you're looking at businesses, you should have some sort of 2025 through at least the middle of the year posted or being able to be given to you easily if you're looking at a business. So if they have nothing for 2025, ask for it. And if they say we won't have that till the end of the year, dig deeper, ask some more questions, because that's, if you don't have your half year statements, then it's probably something's going on there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with that being said, this has been another episode of Deal Flow Live. We have gone through a couple businesses today. Let us know in the comments here if you have a business that you want us to go over, if there's something on your mind, if any of these businesses have kind of like caught your attention, or if there's anything that you would want to know about these businesses, or just send us a deal. Find us on LinkedIn, Ryan Santo MBA on LinkedIn, or Brody Vincent Brody Vincent MBA on LinkedIn. Also, Be Wise on the comments says thank you for the information, really insightful information and explanational. Of course,
anytime.
Thank you for tuning in. So we do this every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, roughly. And we just do a deep dive on businesses, or sometimes we'll just talk about topics in the space like private equity, or like how these transactions work, valuations, and all these different things. Next week is a big one, though. We're having a kind of an influencer in this space that is, I wouldn't say
influencer. I'd say he's a very he's a well-branded professional.
Yeah.
He lives it. He's done it. He's run them. He's sold them. He's bought them. He's David C. Barnett.
Barnett,
one of our favorite people to watch content.
He's got a pretty big personal brand out there for talking about a lot of this stuff. If maybe y'all have seen him before, he's on YouTube, LinkedIn. He's kind of everywhere, and he puts out these great videos, kind of going in depth on everything about business transactions, buying and selling. So we're gonna get undoubtedly some awesome knowledge dropped on us with Mr. David C. Barnett next week. So tune in September 23rd, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we'll see you then. Thanks for tuning in.